On the eve of the King National holiday tomorrow and Obama's inauguration the next day, the Boston-based research and economic justice advocacy group United for a Fair Economy released its 6th annual King Day report. It found that the gaping disparities in income, wealth, employment, quality, and availability of housing, decent schools, and health care between blacks, minorities, and whites has actually grown even wider. Not only is there still work to be done, but with the present and growing economic crisis, the issue of social, environmental, and economic justice are crying out for our moral and compassionate response. This morning, I am calling us to rethink our commitment to social, environmental, and economic justice, and to begin today redirecting our individual and congregational resources in that direction. Having a sermon and a breakfast about Dr. King is no longer enough. Just over 2 years ago, then Senator Barack Obama spoke at the groundbreaking ceremony for the Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. National Memorial. These are closing words from that speech. By his own accounts, he, Dr. King, was a man who frequently racked with doubt, a man not without flaws, a man who, like Moses before him, more than once questioned why he had been chosen for so arduous a task, the task of leading a people to freedom, the task of healing the festering wounds of a nation's original sin. And yet lead a nation he did. Through words he gave voice to the voiceless. Through deeds he gave courage to the faint of heart. By dint of vision and determination, and most of all, faith in the redeeming power of love, he endured the humiliation of arrest, the loneliness of a prison cell, the constant threats to his life, until he finally inspired a nation to transform itself and began to live up to the meaning of its creed. Like Moses before him, he would never live to enter the promised land. But from the mountaintop, he saw it and pointed the way for us, a land no longer torn asunder with racial hatred and ethnic strife, a land that measured itself by how it treats the least of these, a land in which strength is defined not simply by the capacity to wage war, but by the determination to forge peace, a land in which all God's children might come together in a spirit of brotherhood. Obama continued, "We have not yet arrived at this longed-for place. For all the progress we have made, there are times when the land of our dreams recedes from us, when we are lost, wandering spirits, content with our suspicions and our angers, our long-held grudges and petty disputes, our frantic diversions and tribal allegiances. And yet, by erecting this monument, we are reminded that this different, better place beckons us. In the future, when my daughters ask me, 'Daddy, why is this monument here? What did Martin Luther King do?' I will tell them that this man gave his life serving others. I will tell them that this man tried to love somebody. I will tell them that because he did these things, they live today with the freedom God intended, their citizenship unquestioned, their dreams unbounded. And I will tell them that they too can love, that they too can serve, and that each generation is beckoned anew to fight for what is right and strive for what is just, and to find within itself the spirit, the sense of purpose that can remake a nation and transform a world." What might it mean to us as a congregation to be beckoned anew to fight for what is right and to strive for what is just, to be a transformative community in the world? 8 years ago, this very weekend, I told your ministerial search committee, the group that was looking for you a new minister, something that they may or may not remember. 8 years ago, this coming April, when I was candidating to be your minister, I told you as a congregation something you may or may not remember. I told you that if I came to be your minister, one of my hopes would be to see us come to a place where 51% of every dollar we actually give out of our pockets and 51% of all our volunteer time and energy would be directed to social ministry. I am aware that our nation is in an economic downturn. I am aware that the church's investments will produce less money for us to work with in the coming year. I am aware that some of you have lost your jobs and others are at risk. I'm also keenly aware that some of you have little money for anything. But on the other hand, I, like many of you, know that we as a congregation have not been paying our way for a long time. As a congregation of 200 people, our budget exceeds $1 million. About $200,000 of that is raised by tuition and fees through the nursery school, and that's about what it costs to run that program. Do you know how much of our entire budget we pay for out of our own pockets? Depending on how you figure it, somewhere between 7 to 9%. The rest of the money comes from the graveyard, from our endowments. We can do better than that, and we ought to do better than that. Why do I raise the issue of money today? Why can't we just celebrate what Dr. King did and what we hope President Obama will do? Because I believe this economic downturn is going to make every social problem worse. And I believe that we have the resources and the moral obligation to address these problems more fully than we have in the past. Hunger. When some child or mother or man is hungry, it's going to increase. Can you imagine holding your little one and not having anything to give it to eat?